And good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. Friday, as Dr. C likes to say, happy Friday. And we have Spud McKenzie that says good morning, and good morning to you too. And Minnesota Fats, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. So happy Friday or Friday, everyone. And we're going to get into it. And of course, we're going to start with Kids Corner. So let's go.
Evan enjoys his wealth but feels unfulfilled. He spends his days playing games instead of focusing on his future. At school, Evan ignores his lessons, while others work hard. He doesn't realize education is the key to a brighter future. One day, Evan meets Mr. Johnson, who inspires him to invest in his education. He learns that knowledge can lead to success. Evan starts visiting the library regularly. He discovers the joy of learning and the excitement of new ideas with his friends. With newfound knowledge, Evan presents his business idea at school. He feels proud as his classmates cheer him on, realizing his potential. Evan learns that true wealth comes from knowledge. By investing in himself, he opens doors to a bright future filled with possibilities. Remember, investing in your education is the greatest gift you can give yourself. The power to succeed is in your hands.
Yeah, very, very true. And I just want to just encourage our young people out there that are listening, invest in yourself, take those moments, it's okay to put down the cell phone, because a lot of times when we're, just playing games and cell phones, I'm not saying it's not okay to do those things, but don't let those be the majority of your day. Balance your time, right? Go outside, breathe, run around. But then, take some time to read a book and find things that you're interested in, right? That can actually help you in the future. And those things are needed, because like I said, there was a article that I had come across in my excuse me, X timeline in Chicago where I guess a mother and son had been accosted by youth, by excuse me, by young people. It wasn't that they were accosted by gang members, they were children that accosted an adult with her children. And I'm like, what happened to us? You know, and just making it seem like, okay, black people, they're just evil. And it's like, no, it's not just black people that are evil. There is a spirit, and it's entering everybody's households, black, white, whatever. And the problem is we're really not addressing the issue of what are we putting out there, because the adults that actually have the, ability to put, material out there or not put material out there are the ones responsible. Now, if we are putting out things that have deviant behavior, very violent behavior, desensitizing our youth and making it seem like Grand Theft Auto is the way to live real life out in public. What have we done as adults to make this content available to children? It's not the children's fault that they're consuming this material that they shouldn't be. It's the responsibility of the adults to dial back this type of content and say, no, we're not going to put out that type of content. We're going to put out content that actually inspires you to do better, right? Not content that inspires you to harm yourself, right? Or to want to mutilate yourself to be happy. I'm just saying. There are some people that have that kind of mentality. And we need to inspire our young people to do better. So I'm glad I came across that video, that talks about investing in yourself. It's like, yes, I want young people to invest in themselves. But as adults, we need to put out better content that leads them down that path to want to invest in themselves. So, yeah, you can make games like Grand Theft Auto, but 5-year-olds shouldn't be playing it. Just saying. Even 13-year-olds shouldn't be playing it. Really, it's adult content. But somehow adults have said, "Oh, well, that's kinda cute, they can do that." No, it's not cute. Because see, it's not cute when they are out there accosting other individuals and committing crimes. No, it's not cute. So, with that, let's get into our mantra of how to honor God with our body. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So, I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, protect my ears and help me listen for your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please protect my mouth and help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs and help me to honor you with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet and help me walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So, that's just to keep us focused for the day. Because trust me, doing some of the things that I, do and read, and there are times I get passionate about stuff. I still want to make sure that I'm being respectful and that I'm still honoring God in everything that I do. Because a lot of this content is just hard to talk about. And sometimes I'll see people, talk about this content. They got to cuss and yell. And I'm just like, well, you don't have to do that. And at the end of it, what is all that fuss and doing? Are we really focusing on what can we do about it as opposed to just being in our feelings about it, right? Now, with that, I wanted to play this clip of Nicki Minaj. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, "Is that an AI?" And I was like, "No, it's really not AI." She really was presenting at the I don't think it was the United Nations, but she was presenting in regards to the Christians being killed in Nigeria. And I found it fascinating because I've never really seen her as someone that subscribed to being a Christian because of the content that she puts out. That's not Christian material. Like I don't I don't mess around with, a lot of her content because it's very sexualized, which is the opposite of being pure. So maybe she's tried to change. I don't know because I don't follow her like that. But, she is definitely trying to lend her voice to helping Christians, right? So I'm really hoping that through this, that her content does change and that it does become more positive, right? Because you should be known by the fruits of your labor. And if your fruits are in opposition to God, then okay. I'm just saying, don't play with God like that. Don't do that. But let's just see what she has to say.
Globe. I have seen how people, no matter their language, culture, or religion, come alive when they hear a song that touches their soul. Religious freedom means we all can sing our faith regardless of who we are, where we live, and what we believe. But today, faith is under attack in way too many places. In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. Sadly, this problem is not only a growing problem in Nigeria, but also in so many other countries across the world, and it demands urgent action.
Okay, right? So I'm like, okay, you know, she said that. And she's not wrong. Christians are under attack at every point in turn. So I'm definitely praying for her that, you know, her God changes her heart in the way she delivers, her content, right? That it really aligns with what she's saying. But she is talking about freedoms, you know, and religious freedoms are under attack. Now, with that said, I am going to get into some areas where I see the First Amendment here being taken advantage of because of the rights we have on this soil. There are people that are, in my opinion, using uh, things that aren't necessarily good to perpetrate on American soil. Again, because of the freedoms that we have here. It's almost like, ooh, well, I can, propagate this ideology because you say that there's freedom of religion, so you can't tell me what I can't do. Mm, yeah, it's like using goodness against people. And like I said, I'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the first should say articles, not stories, but articles I wanted to cover before I get into anything else. I had someone ask me about a particular article that came up in regards to a Florida senator. So I think this is more of a state issue than it is a federal issue, but still, all in all, an issue. So let's check this out.
News, South Florida Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick facing alarming allegations tonight.
Sherfilis McCormick, who represents parts of Broward and Palm Beach counties, is being charged with stealing millions of dollars from FEMA. She's also accused of using some of that money to help her political campaign back in 2021. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Pastrana.
And I'm Elliot Rodriguez. CBS News Miami's Abby Dodge is joining us live from outside the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami with more details. Abby?
Well, this is just the latest legal battle that the Congresswoman has found herself wrapped up in. A former federal prosecutor tells me there is much more information that the public needs to see. 46-year-old Democratic Representative Sheila Sherfilis McCormick from Miramar is now facing several charges related to her family's healthcare company. The indictment says the charges stem from a $5 million FEMA overpayment back in 2021. It alleges the Congresswoman, family members, and business associates stole extra funds and ran them through multiple sources to disguise the source, then used some of that money to help finance her 2021 congressional campaign. Former federal prosecutor David Weinstein says more details about the representative's alleged role and how it may relate to other COVID relief cases will become clearer once the full indictment is released.
Certainly, the more the facts come out, the better we'll be able to gauge whether or not there was any misconduct.
Weinstein says cases involving the misuse of COVID-19 funding are similar to the Medicare and bank fraud crises of the past.
What happens is that these dollars go out, and when they're being sent out, nobody's really paying attention to who applied for them, why they applied for them, and it's not until afterwards when they start doing accounting and they figure out that they've misappropriated these funds that they then try to turn it around.
In Sherfilis McCormick's case, there are also charges related to her tax filings. The indictment says the Congresswoman and her tax preparer falsely claimed political spending and other personal expenses as business deductions and inflated charitable contributions to reduce her tax obligations. The U.S. Attorney General called the representative's actions a selfish and cynical crime. Now, the Congresswoman could face up to 53 years in prison if convicted, and she is now in Washington, D.C., hopefully making her way back to South Florida to face a judge sometime before Monday at the latest. We have reached out to her and her team and are waiting to hear back. Live in Miami, Abby Dodge, CBS News, Miami.
Yeah. I was like, "Ooh, okay. Okay." Right? Yeah, you're gonna get caught. Like, I do not understand. I remember there was that show, World's Dumbest Criminals. It's like, criminally, you're gonna get caught. And now, this isn't the only, type of fraud that's happened. We've heard of, like, people taking the PPP loans and different things. Like, even in, I wanna say it's in Minnesota with, was it Feeding Our Future or something like that? And Ilhan Omar she was supporting that organization that had been found, and I want to say they stole like a few million, some millions of dollars as well. So this isn't the only person is what I want to let you guys know. This isn't the only person that this has happened with during COVID, where people were doing fraudulent things. Okay. This is just one of the few people that's got caught. Okay. Because I want to say that whole Feeding Our Future thing is still under investigation because they're still finding stuff, still finding things. Yeah, Minneapolis. So South Florida Congresswoman charged with stealing allegedly. Well, I'll say this is allegedly with Minnesota because they have found people, they've brought charges, but I don't know if anybody's actually gone to prison yet. So we'll still blanket that under allegedly, right? So South Florida Congresswoman charged with stealing $5 million in federal FEMA funds and making illegal campaign contributions. This is the press release. Okay, so this was put out about 2 days ago. So a Miami federal, let me see, making sure you guys can see this. Yes. Miami, a federal jury in Miami has returned an indictment charging Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick and several co-defendants with stealing federal disaster funds, laundering the proceeds, and using the money to support her 2021 congressional campaign. According to the indictment, McCormick, 46, and her brother, Edwin, 51, both of Miramar. Interesting. Both of Miramar worked through. So Miramar, I want to say that is a country, right? I want to say yes. I just want to say, I want to say, wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, Miramar, Florida. Okay. Gotcha. City of Miramar was citywide, really support Caribbean neighbors in Miramar, Florida. Okay. All right. That's where they're saying they're from. All right. So I was like, wait a minute. Making sure. Worked through their family health care company on a FEMA-funded COVID vaccination staffing contract in 2021. In July 2021, the company received an overpayment of $5 million in federal funds. Okay, the indictment alleges that the defendants conspired to steal $5 million and routed it through multiple accounts to disguise its source. Now, that's interesting to me. I was like, okay, you got an overpayment and you didn't. And you didn't, Interesting that you didn't send it back. So, prosecutors allege that a substantial portion of the misappropriated funds was used as candidate contributions to McCormick's 2021 congressional campaign for the personal benefit of the defendants. The indictment further alleges that McCormick and Naj LeBlanc, 46, of Miramar, arranged additional contributions using straw donors funneling other monies from the FEMA-funded COVID-19 contract to friends and relatives who then donated to the campaign as if using their own money. So basically, let's say you got the 5 million and you gave 5,000 to somebody. And you said, "Okay, donate a portion of this back to me or all of it back to me," and just say it was a campaign contribution, right? So it was just funneling the money. But it's just like, again, it's just so sad how people think they're gonna get away with criminal activity, and they just don't. And Uncle Coolwater is saying it's good for them. Now she's playing the black card, but your black card has been removed long ago. You're you Haitian now. 10 toes down on it. Ooh, okay. And Spud says Miramar, heavily Jamaican populated area north of Miami-Dade. Okay, thank you for that. And Uncle Cowater says, everything and everyone will be exposed. The covers have been pulled back. Wow. Okay. And Sofa, she says, bless Friday, founder. Bless to you too. She says, to me, this case is going to ricochet throughout Congress. Time to clean house. Yes. And Uncle Coldwater says, good morning. Good morning to you too. Yeah, this is it, but see, here's the deal. A lot of these cases, I don't know if you guys see this, but they're now finally coming out to the forefront. So, it's 2025. This happened in 2021. And a lot of people, they think that they've gotten away with this stuff. And it's like, nah, just because you didn't get audited then doesn't mean you're going to not get audited. If that makes any sense to anybody that's listening out there, it's like, if you did something wrong with the federal government's money, you're going to get caught. I'm sorry. There are a lot of people that are like, yeah, the government's too stupid. They'll never look. They will find you. Okay. And this is proof that they will. Like I said, there are probably other instances and investigations going on that we don't know about because they may have not been able, they may not have been made public. Just saying. But this is one of the few that we know about, right? So, using disaster relief funds for self enrichment is particularly selfish, cynical crime, said Attorney General Pamela Bondi. Okay. No one is above the law, least of all powerful people who rob taxpayers for personal gain. We will follow the facts in this case and deliver justice. That's great. And I'm hoping that you continue to do that, Miss Pam Bondi, being that you were a lobbyist. Oh, yeah, for Pfizer. Uh-huh. Yeah, that was you, along with Mary Wiles. Yeah, yeah, you heard me. That's something she did prior to being our attorney general. We all know about Pfizer, right? Yeah, I wouldn't throw stones too hard, Miss Bondi. Mm-mm, I wouldn't do that. Just saying. So, if convicted, McCormick faces up to 53 years in prison. Edwin Sherflis faces up to 35 years, LeBronc up to 10 years, and Spencer up to 33 years. U.S. Attorney Redding Quinones, a special agent in charge, Brett Skiles of the FBI Miami Field Office, and Special Agent Lockyer of the IRS Criminal Investigation Office made the announcement. Okay. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, you didn't know that about Miss Bondi? Yeah. Yeah, she's special. She really, really is. I mean, seriously, like, you know what? Let's do this. Because it's Friday. And I'm just, I'm feeling like that. Oops. Let me start a new chat. Let's see. Can you tell me oh, about the lobby work done by AG Pam D. Okay. Yeah. So she was a AG from 2011 to 2019, and she was confirmed in 2025 and transitioned into a private lobbying shortly after her state role. She joined Ballard Partners, a prominent DC based lobbying firm founded by Republican fundraiser Brian Ballard, who, as a partner in 2019, just 14 days after her term ended. At the firm, Bondi registered as a federal lobbyist under lobbying disclosure for certain foreign clients under foreign agents for FARA. Right, her work involved advocating for clients before Congress and White House and various Department of Justice. Let's see. Her lobbying tenure lasted until late 2024 when she stepped away amid her nomination process. Okay. So federal disclosures show she earned over $1 million from ballot partners in recent years. Her lobbying drew significant scrutiny during her 2025 Senate confirmation hearings, particularly from Democrats in Judiciary Committee, who highlighted potential conflicts of interest given her future role overseeing the Department of Justice. Right? Critics, including Public Citizens for Senator Dick Durbin, argued that her client list, many facing DOJ investigations or seeking federal contracts, could undermine impartial enforcement of the law. Bondi disclosed only a few conflicts in her pre hearing questionnaire, such as her ties to Trump aligned America First Policy Institute, but omitted others tied to her lobbying. She has pledged to recuse herself from matters involving former clients if confirmed. Okay. Yeah. Some of them, like Amazon, Uber, General Motors, Honda, the GEO Group, the government of Qatar. Let's see. Florida Sheriffs, other notables. Those were some of them. But yeah, she was a lobbyist. I want to ask, did any clients include Pfizer? Yeah, Pfizer was one of Pam Bonnie's clients. Through primarily through her legal consulting work rather than her core lobbying role at Ballard Partners. Based on her January 2025 public financial disclosure, Pam Bondi explicitly listed Pfizer as a client for whom she provided legal services while serving as of counsel at the Florida law firm Panzer, Marr and Maynard. From June of 2021 onward, she earned a little over $200,000, with Pfizer identified as the sole client tied to that compensation. Yeah. So it's not alleged. Just saying. Huh? So if it was like, what? She was a former lobbyist. Yeah, she was. I didn't know that about Miss Bondi. Yeah. That shouldn't even be allowed, right? Oh, dude, that's a serious. Why do you think people were screaming from the rooftops about her? And now people are mad. They're like, I can't believe she's doing this. Y'all are. Lord help them. That's all I can say. So, a former governor of Florida, Rick Scott, has all these folks thinking they can get away with fraud down here. He paid the largest fine in U.S. history for defrauding the government healthcare. Yeah, he did. No, facts. They think they can fraud the government and become a U.S. senator like him. Pfizer equals state of Florida equal Rick Scott equal healthcare fraudsters. Look, it's wild the stuff that they do, but this is why some people were like, "What?" And this Republicans and Democrats. This is why people have had such an issue with her. Okay. We already know some of the issues that people have with Pfizer, just Pfizer, period. Right. But if you're wondering why people have such an issue with Pam Bondi, this is one of them. Okay. Just a look, just saying. Just saying. Okay. But thank you, Soulful. And the I want to say the article that we went over regarding McCormick, that was actually the brainchild of Soulful. So thank you, Soulful, for giving me the idea to review that article, because it was definitely really important. They got some things going on down in Florida. And watch y'all down there. Even though you have Governor DeSantis, a lot of people like his policies. So, just things to look out for, because we cannot just blindly vote for people and blindly just put people in places of position because they're either red or blue, right? There has to be, thoughtful discretion and saying, hey, should we be putting this person in this position? Because she can absolve, Pfizer of maybe wrongdoings that Pfizer may come under fire for, because that was her client. Yeah. And now she's in the position where she can do that, being AG. What about vaccine harms? Do you think she can get in the way of that? I'm just saying allegedly. I'm just having a conversation. Can she? Or will she actually recuse herself? Because she would have to, because that was her client. And then what happens? Yeah. Yeah. It's really crazy. It's really crazy. So with that, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to cover some of these areas of, unfortunately, I won't call it a takeover, but I will say that there are ideologies at work within the United States to really infiltrate freedoms in the United States. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will definitely get into it. Happy Friday, everyone, and I will see you guys on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And I wanted to thank Owen Knight for reposting the stream and joining us this morning. And also, Sassy Lady, thank you so much for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. And with that, we are going to get into our next area or topic for today.
Dearborn, Michigan, once a beacon of Henry Ford's American tenacity, Dearborn has now morphed into an epicenter of the Muslim Brotherhood's insidious campaign, now boasting a Sharia law-compliant Arab majority population, has seen its police force transform from a mere 3% Arab representation to a staggering 45%. Streets once named for Revolutionary War heroes are being commandeered, replaced with Arabic monikers. A short section of Warren Avenue received an honorary co-naming for Osama Siblani. Siblani, who was pro-Hamas and pro-Hezbollah, honored due to 40-plus years as the publisher of the Arab American News in Dearborn. In response to criticism of the Siblani street signs, Muslim Mayor Hamoud told a dissenting Christian resident he was not welcome in the city.
Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city.
Former J6 prisoner Jake Lang's full-blown ambush of Dearborn and its city council recently, for better or worse, heralded the raw, unfiltered mind of real America, something that all of the liberal rhetoric has continued to ignore to its own detriment.
You come here and you marry 4 or 5 women and you outbreed us. You change the laws. You make all of our country look like the places that you fled from. We don't want you here. Respectfully, get the out of my country.
This whole mess was recently underscored by a foiled terrorist plot this past Halloween.
20-year-old Muhammad Ali and 20-year-old Majed Mahmoud are both charged with receiving and transferring firearms that would be used to commit terrorism. The U.S. attorney alleges Ali, Mahmoud, and at least 3 other co-conspirators were involved in a conspiracy to provide material support to ISIS, with the alleged attack planned for Halloween weekend.
And the foiled attack was preceded by chilling Death to America chants at an April 2024 Al-Quds Day rally. Meanwhile, in Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued a proclamation designating the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations.
I did tell the public, as well as local law enforcement, that there actually are Sharia courts that are operating in Dallas, and they are trying to impose Sharia law. And I pointed out to local prosecutors, both in Dallas County as well as in Collin County, as well as to the Attorney General, as well as to the Texas Department of Public Safety, that what they are doing with these Sharia courts that we have identified in the letter that I issued today, they are in violation of Texas law, including violation of Texas penal codes. And so what they're doing in part could be considered a crime, but also clearly a violation of the Texas Constitution.
This action by Abbott, invoking Texas Penal Code and Property Code provisions, prohibits the groups and their affiliates from purchasing or acquiring land in the state, and empowers Attorney General Ken Paxton to pursue civil lawsuits to dismantle their operations, marking the first such state-level designation, despite neither group appearing on the U.S. State Department's federal terrorist list. Even those that know have been screaming from the rooftops for years.
After the recent ban of Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, I have a message to Western countries that still hosts the Brotherhood leaders and members. It's a message from those who know. The Muslim Brotherhood is not just a political movement. It is the ideological mother of some of the deadliest terrorist groups in the modern world. Since its founding, the Brotherhood has been crystal clear about its mission. Not reform, but domination. not coexistence, but conquest. Throughout its history, violence has followed.
You are in a crisis. You went to the Muslim countries and you imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate away from society. You went and you imported them. Why? For cheap labor. But these Islamist extremists, they don't want to work. They want free welfare. They want to marry French women, blonde hair, blue eyes. They don't have time to work.
And I have countless Saudi leaders in their government saying the same thing for 10 years. They're like, listen, we don't want jihad. We want to invest. We want a space age. We got all this money and power. We don't need to have a war. You could say they got some long game. Maybe they're bad, whatever. The point is they've been saying, don't bring these people in. And Germany, England, none of them will deport people that have huge criminal records of murder, you name it, back to Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia will throw them in prison or kill them.
But if you convince the public, they're going to go in the street and say, long live Sharia, long live Sharia. They will do it. But we have to convince them.
CARE has decried it as a defamatory publicity stunt rooted in debunked conspiracy theories and anti-Muslim bigotry, accusing Abbott of prioritizing pro-Israel donors over Texas residents and threatening legal action on First Amendment grounds. Abbott welcomed the legal action as a perfect opportunity for his attorney general to delve into the financial ties binding CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood to overseas terrorist networks.
We're putting an application now where we're selecting the names of the streets in the United States of America. We're putting the subdivision laws. Like, hey, this is the law. One of the laws being your yearly contribution, 75% of it goes to support the masjid that's going to be there. We're making these laws. We're putting those laws. It's unbelievable what Allah can do for you.
It is increasingly embarrassing that we have allowed it to go this far. It's time we took the sacrifice of those on 9/11 seriously. Man up and woman up. Delete the weakness in your life and get to work saving your country and your own ass. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Yeah. Okay. Look, it is, it's at a point where I'm like, okay, I get it that we have world leaders that really just detest the United States. I get it. But the crazy part is people, because of their bleeding hearts, we'll just say that, their bleeding hearts and their inability to have true discernment, have brought this cancer into it's cancer. Now, I'm not saying all people that practice Islam practice Sharia law, because they don't. There are people that practice Islam just like people practice Christianity, but they don't practice Sharia law under Islam. Okay. And I call those peaceful Muslims, right? They're just peaceful. They just want to live peace around other people. They don't want to, do the takeover thing. They just want to be able to do their prayers and that's it. But this other thing that you were just shown, that is a cancer. And like the Imam was saying, he was like, you brought the garbage that people in Saudi Arabia and other countries wanted to either eliminate or isolate. And I say, hey, we need to be on that. Get these people up off the soil, period. Stop expanding our military and spreading us too thin. Bring our boys back home and get this nonsense up off the soil. Get it up off the soil. We demanded as the American public to be protected. You're not going to expose us and then be like, oh, it's civil war. No civil war. And I don't want to hear, well, you can't just deploy the military on American citizens. They're not American citizens. They're naturalized. And their citizenship can be revoked if they don't want to be on American soil. As you heard the gentleman say, he was like, oh, we can use their laws to rename the streets. I don't read Arabic because I'm not in Arabia. I'm in America, and it's all English. And that goes for every nationality out there: Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Arabic. I don't care. English. I do not want to see fonts in other. I don't want to see anything from any other countries here. And a lot of people would say, well, that's xenophobic. That's it. No, it's not. Get up off the soil. If you want to see that, you need to go somewhere else where that exists. You're not bringing it here. If that's something you want to teach your children, that's fine. But you're not going to have it on the streets here. I don't want to learn any of that. If I did, I would go there to learn it. If it benefited me. Okay. In America, English only. And, it's silly that Donald Trump even had to do that when he came back into office. He said, law of the land is English, English everywhere. Is it? I mean, how are we supposed to self-report it? Are we supposed to say, hey, are we supposed to send in a picture to somebody and say, hey, why is there all this non-English stuff? But then it will be a matter of, it has to be done at the local level, right? Because they'll be like, hey, you have to go to your mayor, your councilman, your commissioners. Well, if your mayor, your councilman, and commissioners are all people that align, that, hey, we want to change this to this, now we got a fight on our hands. Now we have to say, as Americans, are we going to stand up, or are we going to just roll over on our bellies? Okay. And I think it's time for us to stand up, because I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Yeah, I live here in the state of Georgia. Yeah, I'm going to be working with some legislatures. I'm excited to, be in that space, because I'm really hoping that I'll be able to say, you know what, our state needs to be the beacon of this, and we need to ensure and make sure that everything is English. And I don't care who doesn't like it. If you don't like it, leave. Because see, when you said, I want to be an American citizen, you gave up all ties to your country, right? You did. You said, I'm going to leave that country and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be an American. That means speaking English. That means American values. You don't have to be a Christian, but you at least have to uphold the Constitution, right? And there's nowhere in the Constitution that says, hey, you can just bring all your nonsense with you and be here in America. Like, it doesn't say that. But again, you try to hide under the First Amendment. You try to hide your degeneracy under the First Amendment, and that's the problem. It's crazy, but it's there. And good morning, Cajun lady. And she says, Doctor is spilling the truth. Oh, thank you so much with your red, white, and blue hearts. Appreciate you. So that was just like, look, y'all, this is one thing I got issue with, and of course, I was messing around ChatGPT. Or I should say with Grok. I was messing with Grok because I was like, hey, I have a question. I have a question because things I don't like. And I want to, and it's kind of weird because I shouldn't mess with Grok like this, but I'm like, I want to know, not so much where Grok stands on this, but things that can and cannot be done. I'm trying to find it because that's weird that it's not there. Because I wanted to, what did I ask it? I asked it basically about banning, and for a better term, banning the wearing of a hijab. in the United States. And Grok kind of got rid of that. I didn't get rid of it. It just, I don't see it right now, but yeah. Let me see. And Soulful says, the melting pot of America is bubbling over. We as Americans have to stop turning a blind eye to this kind of madness. Yeah, we definitely do. And Dr. C says the National Guards should go to Dearborn. Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, Dr. C. But I had asked Grok about, how should I say, potentially, not overtly, but potentially going into, that's so weird that it got rid of it. um Looking at how to get rid of wearing a hijab here in America, because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I'm not touting this on anybody else. In my opinion, the, how to say, people of Muslim descent have, there it is. I just need to refresh. They have taken advantage of the First Amendment, saying that this is a religious preference and this is a religious right, and this is a part of kind of my happiness and liberty, right? Under the First Amendment to do this. But we've seen in other countries without the First Amendment how women have been subjected to have to wear this. I don't know if anybody remembered, like, I think ooh, I want to say it was under the previous Trump administration. So it seemed like it went back that far between Obama and Trump, where there was a people burned their hijab. Like, you know how women burn their bras here in the United States. They did that. They had like a burning of the hijabs, and they took them off and they burned them or whatever. Well, some of those people were killed in those other countries. I'm not laughing, but I was like, it got pretty intense. Actually, let me type that in. Did anyone get harmed during an uprising over burning the hijab in other countries? Because I want to say there was an uprising where women were like, we're taking these things off. And that's why I say it is not a religious preference, but they use it conveniently. Okay, let me just say that. They use it conveniently when they are in their overtaking process, right? Like, oh no, this is our religion. We cover, we're just trying to be pure. And no, you're not. That's a form of being conquered. And I want it up off the soil. Okay, that's where I'm at. So I just typed it in, even though I'm going to go back and reread. But yes, there have been significant instances of harm, including deaths, injuries, and arrests during uprising and protests in other countries where women publicly burned hijabs as a form of defiance against mandatory dress codes. So a dress code and a religious preference are two totally different things. Because that's saying, okay, if you're going to be a part of Islam, this is the dress code. Okay, well, what's the religious connotation behind it? Like, where is it in the Quran? Like, what? What are we talking about? Because if it's not in your book that people have to do this, then this is just a part of your dogma. That's totally different. And you can say, well, it's religious dogma. Again, it's a form of being conquered. Because if it wasn't a form of being conquered, why are people protesting against you? No. But what are we talking about? So the most prominent and deadly example is in 2022. Yeah. So it wasn't under, oh, so it wasn't under Trump. It was under Biden. Oh, okay. Because I was like, I know it happened a few years back. Masa Amini protests in Iran, which escalated into nationwide unrest. Okay, these protests were triggered by the death of a 22-year-old Amani in police custody after her arrest for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly, right? Leading women to symbolically burn hijabs, cut their hair, and chant against the regime. The demonstration spread to dozens of cities, evolving into broader calls for women's rights and regime change. So obviously, this isn't religious. obviously, but see, you use our rights against us here in the United States. Like again, there are some people who need to get up off the soil. Trump administration, if you're listening, like if this needs to come to the whole, you got to use the U.S. Marines to go into Dearborn and shut this down, you shut it down. I'm tired. I'm tired of people being abused and taken advantage of by these demons that have come into our country, and I'm going to call them what they are. They are demons. They don't want peace. They want to conquer. They are evil. And they need to get up off the soil. Let's go. Cajun lady says, shut it down. That's what I'm talking about. Let's get this done. Now, for the deaths, just for this incident, right? At least 551 people were killed by security forces, including 49 women, 68 children. Early reports cited 76 deaths across 14 provinces, including 6 women and 4 children. At least 5 security personnel were also killed. And that was under the UN Human Rights Council. There were injuries, there were arrests and torture, right? Videos and social media footage captured women burning hijabs in bonfires amid clashes with riot police, with protesters dismantling cameras and chanting women, life, freedom, and death to the dictator. The unrest lasted months, making it one of the deadliest protest waves in Iran since the 1979 revolution. Okay. In India, demonstrations in cities like Kolkata condemned Amani's death and featured hijab burning symbolism. Okay. So this was happening in different parts of the world. Now, the other part that I looked at, because I was just like, how can we shut this down in America? And it says, I said, is there current legislation to outlaw wearing a hijab within the United States or within a government position? It says, no, there's no current federal law or state legislation in the United States that outlaws wearing a hijab, the traditional Muslim headscarf. So they say it's a traditional headscarf. Okay. What? But that's the thing. It's tying it to this religion. But again, it's a source. It is a form of conquering people, humans, right? So in public and everyday life or in governmental positions, the U.S. Constitution First Amendment protects religious freedom, including the right to wear religious attire like a hijab, unless a specific, narrowly tailored government interest, right, security or identification justifies a restriction. And even then, courts often strike down or limit such measures. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, using that. 1964 further prohibits employment discrimination based on religious practices, requiring employers, including federal agencies, to provide reasonable accommodations for hijab wearing unless it causes undue hardship. Well, you know what my undue hardship is? The evil that it brings with it. That's my undue hardship. You're messing with everybody's freedom, bringing that cancer over here. Cut it out. And put it back where it is in its dust bowl where it wants to prosper. That's all I'm saying. You don't want to be here. You hate everyone here, and you lie excessively to be here. Like the mom says, men don't want to work. They just want to lay up and have the women get on welfare to take care of them. What kind of man is that? That's not. Now, granted, he was talking more so about what's happening in France, in England, and in Ireland, right? A lot of those things, but they're also happening here too in America, and we don't talk about it. And we're not tying these people together. But see, there needs to be people that investigate that. If you're listening, Pam Bondi. If you do listen at all, I'm just saying. You need to start investigating these Muslim households and the fathers of these children, because these people, they're just not asexual. Come on now. You got 5 women, and maybe, let's say between them, they have 5 kids. All right, 5 for 5, 1 for 1. But they all tie back to the same human that had them. Is this person working? Why are these women on welfare? And who's paying the welfare system back? Because you're supposed to pay this money back. It's not free. Okay. Even in my life personally, right? When I had times when I, took government assistance to help me transition. Okay. The father of my children had to be responsible for paying that money back. I have an uncle, same thing. He has to pay that money back. Are these people being held responsible to pay the money back? Huh? Because nobody's talking about that part. And I'm talking all monies, food, clothing, housing, whatever. So if you are taking $20,000 from the government, there's somebody that's supposed to be paying that back. There's somebody that's supposed to be paying for child support. Are these men paying child support? Huh? What are we doing? Or are they just saying it's an unnamed person? Is this just convenient? It's crazy. It's crazy, y'all. Cajun Lady says Pam Bondi is useless. Cold water. Oh, Lord. She says, I'm sick and tired of the government allowing all the garbage in the world to come in America based on cheap labor. It's just a cover up. But we have to hold the government responsible for allowing all the trash in the world to land on America. Remember, every group that comes to America brings a culture with them, and most of their cultures are unethical. Absolutely. Because who is it that's always getting caught up in criminal activity? Okay, okay. I know I talked about Florida this morning with the other congressional person, but let's just talk about how the Somali community, right? With the whole feeding our future thing, like that's all. I think it's like $2.5 billion. Like look, it was COVID money. They're talking about, oh, we're going to be feeding these kids. And they found that they've done fraudulent fraudulent Medicaid applications, just laundering all kinds of money. It was predominantly the Somali community. And I'm not getting Americans off the hook either, right? For some of the PPP loans, because that happened here in Georgia. But yeah, there's more than not people that aren't from here committing a lot of the fraud against the government because they know they can't. I'm just saying. And it's sad because there actually are people out there that want to do the work and they want to really help people. And because of people committing the fraud like they're doing, they just assume that everybody's a criminal doing this. And that's the sad part, because there really are good people out there that want to help other people. And they don't want to defraud the government, but they kind of get lost in the shuffle. But I really wanted this. I want this done. So I kept pushing, right? I know me and my conversations with Grok. I'm like, I said, in my opinion, this form of attire should be banned from the United States because it is a form of conquering human freedom. It is also can be banned because it's not a religious practice. It falls under specific groups that hide under religion, right? With that said, is there a way to implement a law to ban this attire while not infringing upon First Amendment rights? It seems as though terrorists and those that subscribe to this ideology try to use the First Amendment as a cover. Not to conflate, but if the Crown Act can be used to force people to wear their hair a certain way, can a law then be created to remove the hijab being worn on American soil? And Gronk's response was no. There is no constitutionally viable way to enact a nationwide or statewide ban on wearing a hijab in the United States without violating the First Amendment's free exercise clause and establishment clause. The Supreme Court and lower courts have consistently ruled that the hijab is protected religious practice for the overwhelming majority of Muslim women who wear it, and any law targeting it would be struck down almost immediately. Here's why your proposed approach cannot work under United States constitutional law. So the hijab is recognized as a religious practice, not merely cultural or political. See, again, using our freedoms against us. Okay. So courts and the EEOC, Department of Justice, have repeatedly held that wearing a hijab is a sincere religious practice for most observant Muslim women, rooted in interpretations of Quranic verses. Okay. So in cases of EEOC, so other people have tried this, right? Because there's cases. The Supreme Court ruled 8-1 that employers must accommodate hijab unless it creates undue hardship, explicitly treating it as protected religious expression. A law declaring the hijab is not religious would be an impressionable government entanglement with religion, right? Establishment clause violation, because it requires the state to decide what is or isn't legitimate theology. Right? A direct ban would fail strict scrutiny. Okay. And there's a church, like I said, I'm not the only first person who's thought about this. A lot of people have. And Cajun Lady says, I read those funds were funneled into terrorist organizations. Yeah, they were. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think you're referring to, are you referring to the one? Oh, yeah. We the People. No. You might be referring to the monies with Minnesota, with Feeding Our Future. Yeah. And Cajun Lady also says the communists and socialists are using our laws against we the people. Absolutely, because they know they can. And that's the unfortunate part, because when you say, hey, this isn't right, we shouldn't be doing this, everybody goes, wait, freedom of religion, freedom of expression. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part. It's that part. That's the part that's harmful. Now, the Crown Act comparison does not work in reverse, right? Because the Crown Act prohibits race-based hair discrimination, right? It is an anti-discrimination law, not a mandate forcing people to wear certain hairstyles. You cannot flip it to force people to uncover their hair, right? That would be compelled speech, expression, and a direct burden on religion, exactly what the First Amendment forbids. Yeah, again, because I was just like, what are we doing? So ban on all face coverings in public, that was struck down or never enforced against religious garb. So there are people, they call them beekeeper suits, where you can only just see people's eyes, but you can't see their mouth, and you can't. Yeah, I don't want that here. Now, I guess my other question would be, could women be forced one day, the United States, to wear A hijab or be harmed if they don't. I'm just going to ask the question, right? No. There's no realistic legal, political, or demographic pathway in the United States, nor in any foreseeable future the women to be forced by law to wear hijab or face criminal punishment, violence, or okay. As long as you're saying that, because you're like, oh, they're just such a minor part of the population. See, I don't, You see how that Muslim mayor was like, I'll be glad when you leave and I'm going to have a parade when you move. They're standing 10 toes down. Like, I don't care if you don't like the laws in this city, leave. And I'll be glad when you're gone. That's one of your constituents. Even if that person didn't vote for you, you're still supposed to represent everybody, right? That's what I thought. Yeah, he shut him down. He was like, care about you. Leave. We don't need you here. Leave. That's an American citizen being talked to by somebody who subscribes to not America, right? But subscribes to putting their religious beliefs, right, under Sharia law on this soil. And you saw it. That's the part that I'm talking about. Because what's to say that same mayor can't say, okay, all the women in this town have to cover and write a policy for it. And people will be like, I don't subscribe to that. I don't care. I'm a mayor. It's my city. If you don't like it, leave. That's my thing. And even though Grok is saying, oh, no, that's not possible, I'm telling you, human beings are a trip. And it says, any law mandating hijab would be struck down instantly by a federal judge. It would never even reach the Supreme Court. I'm not talking about federal. I'm talking about local. I'm just talking about anything. Precedent where Hantak allowed the Islamic call to prayer in 2004, it was challenged and upheld only because it was voluntary and not coercive. Forcing clothing would fail immediately. Okay. See, this is what you keep saying, Grok. But the call to prayer in certain cities is happening. They removed the bells. But they do have calls to prayer 5 times a day in cities around the United States. Okay. I'm going to ask. Are there calls to prayer in the United States? Oops. Sorry, y'all. Misspelled. Should be states, not stats. Yes. The Islamic prayer is publicly broadcast in a small but growing number of places in the United States. It is fully legal under the First Amendment, just like church bells or the shofar on Jewish holidays. So if you don't think this is not a takeover, you are mistaken. I want these people up off the soil. Trump, you got 3 years. You can just shut this down. And if anybody in your administration is not on board with it, you know what? We're going to find them. And we're going to get them out of office, and we're going to put people in office that are going to help the American people. Because we are tired. Okay? I'm going to just put it out there like that. That does. Thank you for reposting and joining the stream. Now, I know a lot of people are going to watch this and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe as a Christian you're saying this. I'm saying it as a Christian. Yeah. Because I know the evil that Sharia law brings. I'm not talking about people who practice Islam peacefully. I am talking about the people that practice Sharia law that is in conflict with our Constitution. That's who I'm talking about. They need to get up off the soil. So if you want to, clip it, snip it, repost it, that's what I'm talking about. All right, let's go. And Friedman, Chief Justice Reparations, thank you for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. Now, with that, the next video I'm going to play for us is about the United Nations. Really quick. Now, I'm going to skip through to the part that I really wanted to cover, but I'm going to play like the first part of it, and then I'm going to skip to the second part.
Standing next to a statue of Donald Trump that was put there. It was an obese, fat caricature of Donald Trump standing on the backs of a skinny skeleton-style person, and it was called King of Injustice.
Oh, so that's a miniature of it.
Yeah, they were giving us miniature figurines of the statue they had, so you can see it's an obese, naked Trump, and it's really fascinating because no one will say anything bad about Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the wannabe communist dictator of Brazil, who is openly calling for a global environmental council that would be able to enforce the UN's climate decrees on humanity. Nobody can say anything bad about him. In fact, they throw his critics in jail here. Nobody can say anything bad about Xi Jinping, the CCP dictator. Nobody can say anything bad about any of these people, but Trump is a public punching bag. I wish Americans could see the horror that is going on here. America is regarded as a pariah. All we're good for is handing over all our money. It really is a disgrace. And Alex, you said something that I want to pick up on. I want people to truly understand this because I think there's a misconception in America that because our fake media is not covering this fraud anymore, that it's not important. Folks, the climate fraud is the foundation of the entire effort to build a new world order. It's what they're using to undermine national sovereignty and build a global political system. It's what they're using to rearrange the economy and build a global technocratic economic system. And it's what they're using to bring the religions of the world together in common cause to save Mother Earth. And all of that is on full display here. American adults, they know, they've done the polling. Less than half of Americans even believe that human activity is causing climate change. Less than 1 in 3 Americans are willing to pay a single additional dollar on their monthly electric bill to save the planet from global warming. So they know the more they talk about it in the fake media, no, it doesn't matter what they say, the more upset Americans get. They know they're beating a dead horse. And Gavin Newsom acknowledged that. He said, guys, we got to use different language. Americans don't care about this. They don't know what a carbon emission is. Where does it land? What does it look like? We have to start connecting this to things people care about, like jobs. And so what they're doing is they're just, and they've said this here, Alex, they're just going to brainwash your kids. UNESCO had a big event early on in the summit where they joined forces with the Marxist Ministry of Education here in Brazil and the OECD. They're in the process now of adding what they call climate literacy into the international standardized assessments, the international standardized academic test, so that if a government doesn't brainwash the children, and they say it openly, not just to understand climate change, but to take action. Right? If a government doesn't do that, their children are going to look stupid on this international assessment test. So that's the heart of their strategy. But people need to understand the climate fraud, the idea that carbon dioxide, the gas we exhale, is toxic pollution and therefore must be regulated, controlled, and suppressed by the United Nations, is the heart of the push to create a new world order. They're counting on the next generation of Americans to go full speed on this as we destroy our country, destroy our economy, and pave the way for a one-world totalitarian system.
The government fears Alex Jones, who has the large...
Now, I know that was a mouthful. By Alex Newman, and Michonne says, let's go. Yeah, let's get it. So what he was talking about was they have, the United Nations, they do a climate summit pretty much every year. And this one was done in Brazil. It started on November 10th and it's gone through the 21st, which is today. So today's the last day. That fire that you saw in the background was something that happened at the event. The reason why you saw Alex in his car, Mr. Newman, and not at his booth is because the fire was inside of the event. So with all of these things happening at this climate event, there's been a lot of protesters showing up and doing things that are kind of violent. Just saying. Oh, sincerely, Lawless, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we're posting the stream. So you got that going on. Like, and guys, I know there's a lot going on, and I know a lot of times you're like, you just want to shake the TV, like, what's wrong with you? But see, the reason why we need to know these things that are going on, so when we hear these buzzwords, like they were talking about this whole international test that they want children to take, and that's the thing, they're always going after the children, right? to brainwash and indoctrinate a new generation, just like the LGBTQ community did, right? And they indoctrinated a whole system of humans that now want to harm themselves to be happy. Like, and you would think that's crazy, but that's what they did. And they've done it over time, right? Little by little by little, but they always go after the children because children are easy to manipulate. Because if you punish a child for doing something that's good, but you reward them for doing something that's evil, they will be evil. I'm just saying. And that's what's been created. And Sincerely Lawless says, good morning and happy Friday, founder. Happy Friday to you too. A good morning. Trying to keep up with a lot of these comments coming in. And Freedom Chief Justice says, the contribution is secular, but the extremists are using religious freedom for a silent infiltration. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's like our kindness is being used against us. I mean, I'm not saying we're dodo birds, but that's kind of like what happened. So I'm going to skip through to this video because it's a half-hour video. I don't want to hear the whole thing, but there's a part in here that I did want you guys to hear. And Uncle Coldwater says, train up the children in the way that they shouldn't go, and they will be brainwashed to continue it for decades. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you think about the young lady. Oh, goodness, I forget her name. She was like, how dare you? How dare you? She was like at the one they kept pushing in climate change. I don't want to say her name wrong, but you guys might know who I'm talking about. And she was a young person, and she influenced other young people along this climate path. Like, oh my gosh, you adults need to do the right thing. Climate is the most important thing. Well, climate's important. I'm not saying it's not. And should we be putting poison in our water? Absolutely not. We should be holding these companies accountable for what they do and really looking at, okay, and being good stewards. I'm not saying we shouldn't be good stewards. We should be good stewards. But people are turning this into a religion. And then on top of that, they're saying, hey, you don't need coal and gas, and you don't need these things. You need what? Stop that. And you're trying to create this caste system where there's a 1% that has everything and everybody else is at the bottom. I keep telling you, it's like the Hunger Games. And that is what they want. I'm telling you, they want the Hunger Games and they want everybody fighting over the scraps. Crazy as it sounds. So hopefully I'm at the right part of the video.
At the UN General Assembly and publicly told these world leaders to their faces that this is the biggest con job in human history speaks volumes about panic that we're seeing in the UN right now. If this thing unravels, nobody will believe these people ever again about anything. So they're in a mad dash to get to the finish line on this. I guarantee you they're going to try to come up with some crazy agreement. I hope Trump's people are seriously considering removing us from the UNFCCC and maybe even from the United Nations altogether through the Defund Act. And I do encourage you to get over to
got operatives in his White House. I don't know this for a fact, but it's always this. He'll go, I want out of that, shut it down, so they pull out of the Paris Accord. Guaranteed, if somebody hands you the paper, that's why they're so horrified by our access. In fact, it'll happen. If he's explained, no, sir, we're still under this via this, and now we just didn't have representation, you got to pull fully out, he will sign an executive order the next day.
Yeah, and that would really be the ultimate trump card for this. If he can get us out of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the underlying mechanism that all these subsequent agreements are built on, the whole house of cards comes crashing down. Yes, these people will continue bloviating here. They'll continue coming up with agreements, but they won't apply to the United States of America. So the rest of the world's going to commit economic suicide while the United States prospers. Give me a break, right?
And you just went where I was going in closing. For people that don't understand why they have to have it global, like you got to have everybody take the shot globally. You got to have everybody under carbon taxes. You can't have control groups like the Amish that don't take the shots and they live to 87, 10 years longer than the average person, and none of them get, autism. You can't have free market Western countries that are wealthy and successful when you've got globalist, New World Order, neo-feudalistic communism under BlackRock, they have to have every country under it, and that's why they've got to have Cloward and Piven to collapse us. They are not doing this on accident. They admit it's all by design. Attack Stonehenge, attack the Mona Lisa, attack Monet's, attack Van Gogh's. It's all about attack the loot, anything beautiful, anything that's culture. They're literally saying humans are bad. Your best art is bad. They literally are a death cult. It is beyond sick.
It really is, Alex. And I think the religious component here is really critical, too. It touches right on what you're describing. A few years ago, I was in Egypt for the COP, was it 27?
Let me just interrupt. I agree with you, but it's not a component. It's the root. It's everything.
You're right. Yep. And one of the things that they really emphasized there was changing morality. They were very critical of what they called the morality and ethics that had evolved with humanity over thousands of years. Of course, they're talking about the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, the things that we get from the Bible. And they were talking about the need to redefine this. And so they actually came out with a new and supposedly improved 10 Commandments. They went up to Mount Sinai and had this bizarre spectacle. Then they had, we actually interviewed the people responsible for this atrocity the next day. They told us not only did they come up with a new and improved 10 Commandments where we're supposed to, they said, serve and nurture and love this interdependent, life-giving earth, where they said we have to change our inner climate, things like this. They told us they were working now on the third covenant between man and the planet. So God gave us the old covenant, the new covenant. Now the UN and Friends is going to give us the third covenant. They said to build heaven here on earth. And they're bringing all the religions of the world together. The only ones who aren't welcome, the only ones who are considered extreme and backwards are Bible-believing Christians. And they actually hold us responsible for the alleged climate crisis. They say that this biblical understanding that God put the creation here for our benefit, that we are the stewards, that humans are made in the image of God and the planet is here for our benefit. That is what has caused this environmental disaster on Mother Earth. So they're using the natives, the pagan Indian tribes to bring about this goal. They're even bringing in heretical Christians. They're bringing in major Muslim groups
to form
Jewish
their new
groups,
religion. And here's the microcosm. UK Supreme Court just today brands Northern Ireland Christian teaching indoctrination, says that that we need to study Islam and everything else. I mean, this is literally an attack on Christianity.
So, yeah. So let me just read that headline for those that are just listening. It says UK Supreme Court brands, right? BRANDS, Northern Ireland Christian teaching indoctrination. Okay, so they're saying if you're talking to people about Christianity, you're indoctrinating. Can't do that. You can only talk about Islam. What? This is where we are. Why is Islam everywhere? This is in the UK. Okay. Let me make that a little bit bigger for myself so I can read that one part. It says, in the name of objectivity, and pluralism, religious education.
Because
Alex move his hand.
It is a
religious education must introduce the beliefs of Islam and other religions as well, the court says. So they're saying you can't teach Christianity without teaching other religions. And this is something I've said here, because it's one thing to have the principles of the 10 Commandments, right? All right, because most of our laws are based on the principles. But when you start saying you have to learn this in school, then you open yourself up to like, well, why can't children learn about Satanism, right? Because that's a religious practice as well. I'm just saying it is. And that's the part where you have to say, okay, there's a way to teach principle without teaching religious preferences and just keeping it at being a decent human being. Because yeah, is it good to steal? No. Just saying you shouldn't steal. Period. But it's all in the way we're presenting this stuff. So Freedom Chief Justice says the children are easily influenced. They want the youth to continue the LGBT agenda when they grow up. Absolutely. And Sino, Christians in name only. Yep. And the separation of church and state is in the Constitution. It's called the Establishment Clause. Exactly. And the reason why they put that in there, because our forefathers knew, it's like, okay, if we try to be a theocracy, right, undercover, let's put it that way, other religions will do the same thing. And this is where Islam comes in. And they're using their sway just as Christians use theirs. Look, look, don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm just saying, not wrong on that. But it's the way they're doing it. They're using it the same way Christians would do it. The harm, again, is, in my opinion, you making signs with Arabic language and putting that on officers' uniforms. It's like, no, we are an English only speaking country. I don't want to see anything that's not English. Now, if it's in your house, that's your business. That's in your house. But when you're starting to put it on signs for banks and streets, that needs to be shut down. It should be unlawful, illegal, federal, state level, period. Okay? Because that's how this cancer starts and perpetuates. It's really sad. But I will definitely make sure I post the rest of this video so you guys can go back into that. And just to bring it up really quickly of what he was talking about, because I had to look up and I said, was there an interfaith event at Mount Sinai to create new commandments at the 2022 United Nations event? And that's what Alex Newman was talking about. And he says, yes, there was an interfaith event tied to the 2022 United Nations COP27 climate conference held November 6th through the 18th in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, on the Sinai Peninsula, that symbolically involved Mount Sinai, Jebel Musa, and the unveiling of new commandments, right? Focused on climate justice. However, it wasn't a full-scale summit at the mount itself due to the security restrictions from the Egyptian government. Okay, it says unveiling of new commandments. What? Yeah, y'all. Yeah. They just throw some stuff in there. and Freedom Justice says, don't hate the player, hate the game. Is the founder talking like a madam? I asked that respectfully. No, talking like a madam. You know what I'm talking about. Just saying. The game is what it is. And people have figured it out and they are using it to their advantage. Get upset. I'm not upset. I just don't want to wake up one day and I'm walking outside and somebody decided to kind of like clock me over the head because I'm not wearing a hijab. Does that make sense? That's what I don't want. Because these people are violent. They are not loving. They are not peaceful. They are violent and they are evil. And that's a problem for me. Okay. I hope I didn't miss anyone's comments. That's why I'm scrolling through. I don't know. It's weird the way my what do you call it? StreamYard is. It's like in the comments. It's like some people will be at the top, some people will be at the bottom. Sometimes it'll say new, and I'm scrolling through, and I'm like, well, what did somebody say? But yeah. So the Mount Sinai connection, the event drew heavily on biblical symbolism of Mount Sinai, where Moses received the Ten Commandments. Organizers called it a return to Sinai to echo that revelation, positioning climate action as a modern prophetic imperative. A small group of leaders, including Israeli activist Yosef Borowitz and ICSD chair David Moran Wapner, ascended Jebel Musa for a symbolic ritual. They smashed mock stones tablets, one painted broken promises by Israeli youth activists, another green for green commandments, to represent humanity's failure to steward creation, then read excerpts from the 2011 Holy Land Declaration on climate change. Did y'all know this happened? This happened 3 years ago. Yeah, this happened. And no one talked about it. No, at least I don't know. I mean, I've just hearing about it on Alex Jones yesterday. I was like, okay, I got to tell people about this. Is crazy. This happened 3 years ago. It happened right under our noses, right? In a way that we supported it only because, and this is crazy, right? Because the last administration in 2022, they were more than likely aware, right? More likely than not, there was some representation there because that past administration was definitely focused on climate change and putting in policies because that's where we're at right now. When they were like, yeah, shut down all gas and coal. And then we're wondering why our gas and coal, prices shot up because they shut everything down, supply and demand, then went through our reserves when there was more demand than supply. Stupid. And we're still recovering from that right now. Okay. And so Freeman Justice says the game is sold, not told. Not a pimp. I'm a manager. Okay, understood. Understood, right? But a set of interfaith guidelines on for environmental ethics. Example include calls for repentance from greed, long-term altruism, emissions reductions, and protecting vulnerable communities, framed as a covenantal renewal, not a replacement for biblical law. These were presented as a prophetic call to action during the ceremony and subsequent events in London, Jerusalem, Shram Ilak, and Rishikesh, India. Look, these things are happening around us, and we have to be mindful and aware of what's happening. And Cajun lady, she was laughing at that last exchange before I read about the new commandments. But these are things that we have to be aware of. This is why we need to be out of the United Nations, right? The United Nations, WHO. And a lot of people say, well, if we're not there, then we won't know what they're doing. Okay. Here's my thing. We can always know what people are doing because we can always just have access to the information. But that doesn't mean we need to be a part of the group paying for lunch. Okay, because that's the problem. We're a part of the group. We are paying for lunch and we're paying for our own demise. That's the problem with the United States. And we have people that are okay with that. That's a problem. Okay. And Trump pulled us out of the Paris Accord and he thought, okay, if we're out of the Paris Accord, then we're out of all these things. It's like, no, it's like a hydra. It's like you cut one head off and another one grows back. We have to specifically say out, 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 out. Okay, so we got to the whole 10 Commandments thing. Let me see. I had asked about some other stuff. Let me see if it pulled in the things I had a question on. Nope, that's not there. Because I was trying to find out if we had anything, if we had put in place any legislation here to protect us. That's what I was trying to find out. So I did look into Biden's climate change orders, and apparently we did have some people put in legislation. Yes. So I said, I'll be glad when the United States is removed and a law put in place to never be involved in the United Nations. And of course, Grok says, get your frustration. And as of the 21st, there's real momentum building toward exactly what you're hoping for. right? Legislative pushes to cut ties completely and bar for future involvement, right? So it's called the Disengaging Entirely from the United Nations Debacle Defund Act of 2025. And this was put forth in the Senate and in the House of Representatives in February by Senator Lee, who was a Republican from Utah, Chip Roy from Texas, and others. It aims to terminate U.S. membership in the UN and all its agencies, which UNESCO, right? Like I said, it's like a hydra because it's not just one agency. And then ending all funding, right? No more assessed or voluntary contributions, which the U.S. had paid $13 billion in 2024 alone. $13 billion. You know what we could have did here with $13 billion? We could have got rid of some people, okay? We could have got them up off the soil. And we could have got some people up off of the streets like our veterans, right? And got them into housing and treatment programs that they need to be in. Okay. And also helping other citizens who are homeless who shouldn't be there either. And maybe, we need to open up the insane asylums again, because what happened? You just threw all those people out on the streets and nobody's getting treatment, but people are making money off of these people and they're still not getting assistance. $13 billion stop. It needs to stop going to things that are not helping the United States. Repeal foundational laws like the 1945 United Nations Participation Act, effectively making re-engagement illegal without explicit congressional approval. So then it would be up to Congress to make that, where a president couldn't just come in unilaterally and say, we're a part of this, because that's what's been happening. Evict the UN from its New York headquarters and strip diplomatic immunities. I like it. Ban U.S. participation in UN peacekeeping or any related operations. I like it because, again, we're always paying for lunch. We're always picking up the tab. Everybody's like, yeah, this idea is great. United States, will you pay for this? Just saying. Like, that's how it goes down. It sounds crazy. Sounds insane. But that's what's happening. And Freedom says facts. Our homeless American freedmen and veterans are suffering while illegals are thriving. It has to stop. It's painful at this point. I don't like it. Now we're going to cover another area really quick before we get out of here, so you guys are just aware of what's going on.
I'll tell you a story about Illinois politics that proves to me that Democrats still don't get that if you want to convince people that you're the democracy, the pro-democracy party, you have to act like the pro-democracy party. Okay, so this starts with a guy who you've almost certainly never heard of, an Illinois Democratic congressman, represents an overwhelmingly new Democratic district. His name is Jesus Chuy Garcia. Congressman Garcia decides the day after the Illinois filing deadline, the last day that you can file for the race, that he's not going to run again. And oh my gosh, what a surprise. The only person able to gather signatures on a petition to get herself on the ballot in that incredibly abbreviated window that you can do it, because he announced he was retiring after the state's filing deadline, is his chief of staff, Patty Garcia. They're not related. They just have the same last name. And stunningly, guess whose name is the first name signed on the petition to get Patty Garcia on the ballot? Chuy Garcia. Now, Garcia, the current congressman, says that he decided to retire to take health issues and to take care of his family. Okay, but you did it the day after the state's filing deadline? Man, that's a coincidence. And you were the first person to sign your chief of staff's filing petition signatures so that she could be the only one to make it on the ballot? I mean, this is beyond ridiculous. Everyone should stand up against this. And kudos to Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, who is a member of Congress and a Democrat, yes, a Democrat from Washington State, because she said, well, this is BS. Like, we can't have this. Like, this is clearly a subversion of the democratic process. And she filed a procedure to have Chuy Garcia, the congressman, formally rebuked on the floor of the House. This should have been a unanimous vote, right? This came on the same day that the House voted to release the Epstein files, 427-1. So this happened on Tuesday, November 18th. I looked up the vote. It wasn't unanimous. It did pass, so Garcia will be formally rebuked. It passed with 236 votes for and 183 against. Only 23 Democrats voted to rebuke Garcia, while 183 voted not to. This is ridiculous. Kudos to the 23. I'm not going to read them all, but kudos to the 23 who joined Marie Gluesenkamp Perez to vote to rebuke him. This is appalling. And it's made worse by the fact that the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, of which Garcia is a member of both, sought to try to penalize Marie Gluesenkamp Perez for calling up this measure to rebuke Garcia. What? They're penalizing her or trying to penalize her because he clearly subverted the democratic process to basically hand off a House seat to his chief of staff. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that the average person isn't following that closely, but you should know about, because this is the stuff that makes people including me, very skeptical when Democrats say we're deeply committed to, we're the pro-democracy party and Republicans are the anti-democracy party. It seems to me that most of the politicians I know, Republican, Democrat, are the pro-them party. They do things that help them and their friends, right? And they try to punish people who stand against them. It's much less about democracy than it is about doing what works for them. Garcia, the congressman, clearly wanted to hand his seat off to his chief of staff. So he went around the procedures, announcing his retirement after the filing deadline so that she was the only person who could gather the signatures, because I'm sure he gave her a heads up. In fact, he was the first person to sign her filing petition. I mean, this stinks to high heaven. You know, and I think it undermines the 183 House Democrats who voted against rebuking Garcia. All of them have no leg to stand on to talk about democracy and how they're the pro-democracy party, because this is bull. This is ridiculous. And the fact that the Hispanic Caucus and the Progressive Caucus tried to punish Marie Gluesenkamp Perez for doing the right thing, which is saying this, if we're the pro-democracy party, we can't act like this, shows you how deep in they are. Not only did people vote against it when they should have voted for it, but they also tried to hurt her for doing the right thing, because that's not what we do within the Democratic Party. What? Isn't the Democratic Party the one that's been telling me about how democracy is at stake and they're going to do anything and everything they can to protect it? Give me a break. Sorry for the rant, but this is bull. This is ridiculous. And it needs to be called out. Kudos to Marie Gluesenkamp Perez for doing the right thing, and for the other 22 Democrats in the House who voted for her. And shame on you, 183 Democrats who voted against this. And shame on you, Hispanic Caucus and Progressive Caucus, for trying to punish one of your members for actually doing the right thing. Oh, maddening. Okay. That's all I got for today. Hope you do one thing for me, which is...
Yeah. Right. And Friedman Jesse says, who was that speaking? Is that Heart Seller from Twitter? I'm not sure. That gentleman, his name is Chris Sizzla. Yeah. But interesting, right? Because you do hear Democrats talking about, oh yeah, Republicans are, you're doing the same thing that you're saying other people are doing out in public. And I'm not saying the Republicans don't do it either. They're just probably sneakier about it. But this is very telling of the Democratic Party, right? Now they'll say it's isolated to the Progressive Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus, but we know these things go on in the Black Congressional Caucus. If it goes on, right? Because they're so all in bed with everybody. They're just, I don't know. They're just paid. In my opinion, they're just paid opposition. You know, they're there to make money and be symbolic, but not do anything. You know, they're very useless. But yeah, so hopefully you guys got something out of all the information that I shared with today. I'll definitely try to find that congressional record that Chris had mentioned in his rant along with his video so you guys can just check it out. And it won't say actually what happened. It'll probably show votes, but it will definitely show what he was talking about, because like you're gonna wait and retire and wait until after the deadline, and then your chief of staff just miraculously decides to run and you're the first person to sign the petition. Really? That's called a setup. That was like an alley-oop for the slam dunk. Like, what? Stop. Now, see, stuff like that, in my opinion, people should be censured for and removed from office. And you should be removed from office without any pension, right? Period. I don't care how long you served. You should be removed from office, and we, the American people, should not be paying your pension. And then the person that filed to run in your place, because all of you illegally did that, and you were all in on it, and I'm sure we can find corroborating emails and text messages and all those things, because I'm pretty sure you left a digital trail. That person should not be allowed to run for office and should be censured permanently. Should never be able to hold office. But you won't do that because you don't have any integrity and you don't care. And you're really about people doing the bidding of donors as opposed to actually standing up for the American people. And these are the things that we have to talk about and bring to the forefront. So before we leave, we're going to say our quick prayer for Prayer with Friday as we pray our Thanksgiving and go to the weekend. God, thank you so much for bringing us here together on a Friday. We've gone over a lot of information, just a lot of things, God, going on in our country where we just want to be free, Father. We truly pray that you touch the hearts of our congressmen and women, that you protect them, watch over them. And I pray that you just put on their hearts to do the right thing, God, by the American people. Father, I also pray that you get any demonic forces above of our soil. Father, those that, want to hurt people and do harm to them. I pray that you remove them from the soil or change their hearts, God, that they start being productive members of society that just want to work together, shoulder to shoulder with others, God. We definitely thank you for everything that you've done for us, everything that you've given us, and we pray that we are good stewards over everything that you've blessed us with, God. We love you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for our Prayer with Friday. We will see you back here on Monday for our Monday recap. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.